Hey there. I'm excited
Hello.
today. Thank you, Meredith, for coming.
Thank you for having me. Very excited to be here.
I know. So Meredith was on last year, almost a year ago, when we talked about Taylor Swift and the Divine Feminine. And that was a
Mhm.
really fun conversation. And then we got to know each other a little bit more. And in following you, I saw that you were promoting the new book that you're just recently released. So I was like, do you want to come on here and talk about it? So
Oh, well, it's not released yet. It
I
comes
know.
out
Oh yeah.
July
Well, it's almost it's
recently
building.
to promote, I guess, for
When is it
pre-order.
when is it being published or released or whatever?
July 8th,
Okay.
2025.
Okay.
Yes.
That's so cool. So yeah, and then we scheduled the podcast and then it was like, you're like,
Yeah.
don't you want to read it first? I was like, oh yeah, that would be helpful. So yeah,
Yeah.
glad I
But
could read it.
I'm just so pumped that you read it and you read it so fast and it's
Yeah.
just like made me
I
very happy.
know.
Yeah.
I know. I was like, oh, I have to read it on my phone and like, am I gonna be
Oh,
okay? Like, are my eyes gonna be tired? But I was fine. And then like you said, you're like, I think you're gonna read it pretty quickly. And I really did. Like, I have no problem. I love reading
mhm.
like autobiography, like
Mhm.
biographies and like real stories.
Yes.
So it went quick and I just like sat there on the couch and then read it at night and I was done and it was like Saturday, Sunday and I was done and texting you throughout. So
Yeah. I love that. No, I mean, I intentionally I like that kind of writing style. I don't, where it's conversational and you can feel like you're there and
mhm.
that it's not complicated. You don't have to overthink. I just wanted people to be able to feel like that they were right there in it.
Yeah, yeah, I know it was captivating. So I guess first off, tell us tell us about your book. So it's the Plan B Chronicles about divorce, defiance, and liberation. That's the title. And you
Mhm.
were divorced only what did you say? It's a year now, final?
Leah here on March 13th,
Yeah.
final.
Yeah.
Yes. And it
So,
took many years.
but I think you said that, did you say that you were like, used your journals to help write it? Yeah.
Mhm.
Because that's what
Yeah.
it gave you like that present feeling in reading it because it really was written in the present at the time.
Yes.
So yeah,
Yeah.
tell us what led you I don't know what you want to tell us, but like,
Oh, okay. Yeah,
what
I
made
know,
you,
right? If
yeah,
you read it, you're like,
you felt like an urge to share your story to help others, I guess.
yeah, absolutely. And I felt compelled also, this is the Spirit Seekers podcast by Spirit. I would get, I mean, really woken up. I think I've never considered myself a writer. So
Mhm.
this is new and kind of wild that, I'm a two-time author now when I didn't ever expect to be.
Right.
And part of it is just to cope with the chaos in my life was to write it down. And I will say that I speak somewhat about the dynamic within a marriage that has become abusive. And I was always kind of questioning my own sanity or my own reality. And so that's also why I wrote too, was
Mhm.
so that I could go back and be like, wait, did that really happen? Because I think I just started being conditioned into questioning myself and my own experience of things.
And
So,
then in like in retrospect, you recognize that your ex was narcissistic. It
yeah.
wasn't like you were aware of that, and the alcohol just made it even more exaggerated. Like, what was the
Yeah, well, I struggled with it for so long to try to understand because I'm like, wait, I was with this person for over 8 years, had a child with them, and I didn't see these things. I think that it was like underlying there, but the alcohol and drugs just made it full blown
Mhm.
narcissistic um, qualities and and abuse. And so, yeah, that was what was pretty hard to understand, to reconcile, because it felt like two different people that
Right.
and it's like, how do you react to someone? It was hard to react on just their behavior, like his behavior, compared to because I would think about the person who he used to be and want to react to like that person and be loving and caring, but then you're also just like, wait, what? This isn't okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was 2020 that kind of
It was
brought
2020.
forward, right?
Yeah, because I mean, I think that I don't know what our lives would have been like if the pandemic wouldn't have happened. I
Yeah.
wonder if we would still be together because he had never ever drank
Hmm.
prior. That had never been his thing. And then the pandemic happened and I was working all the time, as a therapist. I mean, my it was booming because
Everybody was freaking out.
everyone was freaking out, me included. And so, and then he was out of work. And then once he did start work, but like before that, the drinking had started.
Hmm.
And
I remember
um,
at one point you said that, I think it was later in the book, the realization of making more money than him. Maybe that was
oh yeah,
thing that
yeah.
like lit something in between the two of you and insecurity in him or whatever, or jealousy.
Yeah, but he had kind of been a cheerleader in the past about things, but I still was always making less.
Right.
So I don't know. It's like all these new dynamics
Hmm.
have changed, and then to see under those type of circumstances of COVID, to see how he handled it and how I handled it, and just and then also it's important to note that at the same time, our son was diagnosed with autism as well. So that was
In 2020 or 2019, right before the pandemic, right?
right before the pandemic. And
Yeah.
so
And
we
how
had
old was your
very
son?
2.5,
Okay.
almost 3.
Hmm.
Yeah. And so that was a whole thing where we just took it two different ways. And I was accepting and wanting to do right by my child and get them any kind of services,
Right.
but the label of a disability was very hard, and I understand it to get past for him. Like he didn't agree with the label, but I was like, okay, there's the label there, but we have to work the system, and if it requires a label in order to get services paid for,
Right.
let's just do it. And so that was a big source of contention there.
I had this, not the same, but similar with my husband reacting when our oldest was diagnosed on the spectrum when she was in second grade. He
Mhm.
kind of pushed back against it. And I
Yeah.
was like, oh,
Mhm.
but and whatever, like Grace was pretty high functioning and was able
Yeah.
to slip through the cracks just fine without too much intervention. Like she eventually got like OT
Hmm.
and speech therapy. She had speech therapy and like the poor grip and stuff, but she was on the higher end of the functioning. So she was okay to skirt, but it was like the depression or the different things that could come up by middle school that they warned us about. They really weren't that concerned about her in the younger ages, but
Okay.
my
Yeah.
husband's brother was diagnosed with well, back then I don't think they did. I think they just put him in like a special ed room, but he basically just had dyslexia and maybe some
Mhm.
kind of learning problem, but he was like lumped in a way that was bad for his self-esteem and social conditioning and whatever. So my husband really rejected it hard because of his own life story.
Yeah.
I let him because he was so adamant about it that I didn't fight for our kid.
Yeah.
But
Hmm.
your son, it was important that you fought for that,
Yeah. I mean,
you know.
he was struggling with even speaking. I mean, he didn't speak for a
Yeah,
very long time.
right.
And it was, and with the eye contact, all of the classic things, and
Hmm.
even like the recognition, and he's very different now, like very attached, very, I mean, but that's what I truly believe, that's why earlier intervention is so important, because he got in it so early.
Hmm.
And he's going to have a quote unquote, I think, easier life because of that.
Yeah,
Because um
because you took a stand and got him the services he needed at a younger age.
he did. It
Yeah.
was very, and I knew as a therapist, but that was used against me, that he was like, he's like, it's like he thought I was just imagining it or seeing it more because I had worked in therapy. But I'm like, but my specialty is not in autism. And my
Hmm.
friend is a clinical psychologist who specializes in autism. She works specifically in New York City with adults with
Hmm.
it.
Hmm.
And um, she came over too. I'm like, can you just, I know this isn't ethic, like not like
Yeah.
you're in a, but before I started the process, like, am I crazy? And she was like, no, it's clear as day. And
Yeah.
so I just had to, I had to keep pushing, but I had to, hide things, and we weren't allowed to say the word. Like you couldn't say, you'd have to say A, like you couldn't even say autism around my ex. So it was
Wow.
just very like that. And then I mean, he had started drinking before, but then that, and I think being a new parent and then parenthood, and then also being out of work and then taking on more of the responsibilities, but for a very short amount of time. So then I was like managing everything. So it was really, really hard. So I have so much compassion for him, for all of the different things that could come together to cause you to struggle in that way.
Hmm.
However, uh, when it starts to harm myself or my child, it's a no. It's
Yeah, that's a
no.
hard line.
Yeah,
And
probably.
another thing about you that I think is cool is that, like, that you've kind of quietly talked about being intuitive and whatever, like, and that in the book that you're less quiet about it, I guess,
Yeah.
like, because I would, in watching your videos, I know, like, I remember watching you kind of like tiptoe around saying
Mhm.
directly because of just whatever, like, you don't know how people are going to react because we were
Oh,
probably
yeah.
killed for it many times over in other lifetimes. Like, there's a reason why we're afraid,
Yes,
you
yes,
know?
yes.
But like the story you had about your son and his kidneys or whatever when he was like
Yeah.
what
Oh,
6 weeks
yeah.
old or like 12 weeks old, or it was something like that, right? He was young.
7 weeks old.
7 weeks.
Yeah. 7 weeks.
And
Whenever
you had
he
like an
had,
intuitive nudge, like you just knew.
I just knew. And that's why I was like, you can either,
But what was the story like, just to hear it?
yeah. So, my son was just taking a nap in the afternoon, and it just started to go a little longer than his normal naps.
Hmm.
And my ex was like, well, it's no big deal. Are you happy he's sleeping? And I was like, I don't know. I just knew it in my bones. I was like, there's something seriously wrong here.
Hmm.
And I had to just like even speak out to my, I had to go outside and just be like to my, spirit guides, ancestors, whoever. I'm just like, am I crazy? Like, that's where I
Yeah.
was like, it was like, no, just complete confirmation. And I said to him, I go, we're going to the hospital right now. We're going to the ER. And it was like, are you kidding me? Like, are you serious? And I look, you can be mad at me. If this is nothing, then be mad at me and I won't ever do it again. You know what I mean? But I know this in my bones. We have to go right now.
Yeah.
And he had a urinary tract infection. And so since he was younger than 8 weeks, they even had to do a spinal tap on him and a lot of things that, of course, I wish they wouldn't have had to do.
Hmm.
But Melissa and I talk about in the book, he was born with an unusually like tight foreskin, and he had a bottleneck in his urethra. So, there was nothing about cleanliness or anything like that, no pointing fingers. It was like it literally was it just happened, but it can, kids can die from that at 7 weeks old.
Yeah.
So we went and it was real, and
He
yeah.
needed surgery and or
Surgery. He had surgery. Well, he was in the hospital for a couple days, and which was so hard at 7 weeks. And then he had the surgery on his urethra, and then they cleaned out debris in his bladder at 14 weeks old.
wow.
Yeah.
I know.
Mhm.
It's like, thank goodness your intuition, like, it's so loud. And when Grace was 6 weeks old, I'm pointing upstairs because that's where her bedroom is. When she was 6 weeks old, she had thrush, and I was
Mhm.
like, why is her tongue white? And I just heard thrush, and I was like, where
Mhm.
did that even come from? And like, it was like stored away from, like, I learned it in massage school like years prior.
Wow.
And I just love how, like, our intuition, mother's intuition is no
The
joke. Like,
mother's intuition, like it's
yeah,
people might just be like, "Oh, you're just a mama bear," and I'm like, "No, I like knew it in my bones. Like I had to act fast. Like right now, let's go.
yeah,
It's not just him
yeah.
sleeping a little bit longer than normal."
I know, I know. And you saved his life in doing so. I mean, my
No.
God, it's
Yeah,
crazy. I love
yeah,
how you started your book, but like, I don't know if that you want to talk about how you
I
start your
can. Yeah,
book.
yeah. Because well, I like to talk about it because it's the very first chapter, and it's
Hmm.
why the title came to be.
Right.
You know, so yeah, you want me to tell?
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
mean, if you want to, like, I just wasn't sure if you don't want to
yeah.
give away like spoilers or whatever.
No, no, no. I have it posted online about this
Okay.
story because um I went back and forth about the Plan B Chronicles. I'm like, how are people gonna, are they gonna think that they see divorce? And I was assuming they're gonna think, oh, from Plan A to Plan B. And
That's
it's
how
this,
I understood it. Yeah.
no, like
No,
that's where
well, until I
I'm
read it.
exactly. I'm like, oh, no, 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 no. It is referencing emergency contraception Plan B. So I will say I didn't include exactly all the parts in the book just for different reasons, but that morning, I had prayed to my spirit guides, my angels. I had said like, burn it down to the ground, like what, let the truth stand. Like I can't live like this anymore. Like it was just so, everything was just so, so, so bad.
Mhm.
And
And
yeah,
it was like 2 years into the dysfunction when all that kind of culminated.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then I just and within 4 hours, 4 to 5 hours later, it's like everything changed. It was never going to be the same. But my car had gotten blocked in behind my husband's car had gotten
Hmm.
blocked because he actually got arrested. And and so when I could finally get into his car, which I never would have gotten into otherwise, I backed it down the driveway and I was getting ready to get out of the car and it was for real. Like I felt a real hand around my wrist
Yeah.
and I felt it
Like you
go.
were like an active Ouija board. You were just
Yeah, like because I'm
led.
just sitting
Yeah.
there and it was like this and then boom, like put my hand right on this black bag that was on the passenger seat.
Hmm.
And I just knew inside I'm supposed to like open this bag. I
Hmm.
need I didn't hear like a distinct like open this bag or whatever. It's like I just knew.
Yeah.
They opened it up and there was a like a crumpled up receipt and I hate receipts. But it's just something about me like I can't I just think that they're useless because I'm like everything's in your bank account statement anyways, you know? And so like I don't like I always throw them away. I won't take them if they try to give it to me. And so it's weird that I even took the time, but I remember like unfolding it and like
Yeah.
running it out the wrinkles. And then that's where I saw the day prior he had bought an emergency contraception plan B. And I don't have fallopian tubes.
Hmm.
So that's when it was just like the whole trying to think like, is this for someone else? Just the whole, and
Hmm.
that's how it starts in the book. And that's Plan B. And then Plan B comes up, like the actual Plan B box and things like come up throughout the
Oh,
book.
right, right,
It
right.
felt, I didn't even include, I was at this, my friend's 40th birthday, like 5 months after that had happened. And we were at this, we were like in Koreatown in New York City and we were going to do karaoke and there's this lit up, I have a picture of it, is this Plan B on the wall. And I was like, I it just was like it was haunting me or something. And so it's funny that it now became the name of the book, you know?
Yeah.
It's Plan B. It is,
Yeah.
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 hmm
And there's
hmm
so much, there's like I really do appreciate the storytelling and like the chronological order, but then every now and then you would flash back to other things, right? Like I don't know how many times you did flashbacks,
hmm
um but yeah, looking at it in sequential, most of it was like 2022, most of the story, I think, right?
Yeah. And
But
into 2023. Yeah.
it's so
Yeah.
crazy. But yeah, whatever
Yeah.
to share about it, it's like he was gaslighting you, he was being
I mean, it was,
he wasn't like he like you said he kicked a gate or something, and that's what kind of led you to like feel like
yeah.
scared, or he kicked a door in or something, right?
No, he kicked a steel, it was a gate, a steel
Mhm.
gate. And it hit my wrist, and you can see my wrist is still not the
Oh wow.
same. I refused medical attention because it's like if he goes to get a psych evaluation and then like I'm going to get medical and our son's asleep, what
Yeah.
is going to be with our son? Like the whole, you know, I'm just thinking about all of the different steps. So yeah, it just became when I wanted to leave or when I was like, it's rehab or or we're separating, that was when it was like just heightened and that happened. And I had no idea though that also at the same time I was also being cheated on. Like this,
Right.
like another life was going on. And it was just so, it's because I never thought I would be one of those women that wouldn't know or like wouldn't be, because
Right.
everyone's like, well, come on, like there has to be signs. I did not
Yeah.
on them. And I think that I also talk about pulp cultures type stuff, but like other people that I would hear of their experiences going through divorce or getting cheated on. And I just realized how kind of like naive that I was though too. And
Well, you said you had like a nanny or like somebody who was helping you out.
yeah, the nanny was, approached me and was just like, yeah, I don't, and I just thought it was because of her background, 'cause she had had a similar thing, being cheated on and getting a divorce. I was just like, yeah, yeah, okay, like just did not.
Yeah, she's like trying to warn you, like, I see all the
Yeah.
red flags, and you're like, it's fine.
Yeah, I was like, that's fine, please, like
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. Quit
Yeah,
projecting your shit onto me. Yeah.
exactly. And then I'm like, in retrospect,
Yeah.
I'm just like, whoa, I should have.
Yeah. And then you had that mentor that also had like echoing a similar, the lady who passed away.
Yes, yes, she was going through almost the exact same thing.
Hmm.
It was pretty bad.
She's like a couple year,
She was
decades,
much
and she had health.
decades into it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then she got metastatic breast cancer
Yeah.
and passed and would confide in me and we would talk about all of these different things. We worked alongside each other because so she was a psychiatrist and I'm a therapist. And so we would have a lot of like similar
Yeah.
clients and that's how we got connected. And she lived down the street from me. So it was pretty crazy how we had that. And then tying in all of the complexities of how she would communicate to me when she went to the other side, and then also with her, her late husband, and then him wanting to connect with me after when I was like, I wanted to be in their children's lives, but not his
And
necessarily. So,
he call you and kind of be aggressive in a
oh
way
yeah,
that
he was
was like,
mad. He was like, don't go and say that you are going to be, you know, in our lives and if you can't show up or something and I was just like
you're like,
and
the
then
relationship isn't with you, mister. It's with the kids and with her.
oh,
Yeah.
yeah, it was, and knowing how he like pretty much tormented her until she died, I was just like, like
Yeah.
no. So yeah.
And I liked when she in before she passed, like you kind of acted in a way as a death doula for her to
Yeah,
some extent, right? So,
yeah,
and in
because she
your,
was not, yeah,
what
she
did
did
you
not
say?
believe in the afterlife. She did not believe in the afterlife
Oh,
at all.
right, that's right. She didn't believe in it, but she was like, well, if I did come back, I'd come back as blackbirds. Like, right? Is that was kind of how the conversation went? Like you somehow finagled
Yeah.
that out of her to be like, oh, fine, I'll entertain
Yeah,
you.
no, yeah, I was like, just indulge me. Like, come on. Like if you do, like when you pass, I want to know. So like you don't have to believe that there's anything after. And I think that's why she was also so freaked out with death. And she's like, I've seen people die in hospitals. I've done the whole like, and I'm like, but it's not over. That's what I believe. And I'm
Hmm.
like, no,
Yeah.
nothing. So what it could be true. If it is true, then what would you want to come back as? She's like a
Yeah.
blackbird because her favorite song is Blackbird by the Beatles.
Right.
And daughter actually performed it at her funeral.
Hmm.
And then she had always she wanted to die. I was like, where do you want to die? And she's like, in Florida on the beach, like just to be in the sun. But she was also very afraid of dying on a plane. So I was like, well, so she wasn't going to do it. And I went down there to shortly after the funeral to kind of honor her and then also repair my marriage at the same time, like kind of like let's do a trip away and whatever. And I had like written her name in the sand and spoken to her. And then as I'm walking back to the hotel, um, I noticed my ex is at the bar, which I was like, because alcohol was an issue. Like, you know what I mean? And I was just like, are you serious? And then, oh man, that blackbird almost like swooped right by his head and he had to feel that. And it sat beside me and people just couldn't believe it because it was at Christmas. It was in the holidays, and here's this huge. I mean, it was beautiful, and it was staying right by me. And then I said to him, I was like, well, I don't want to say the name because I
Right.
don't.
Right. Yeah.
Mary. That's what I said in the book. That's Mary, and he was like he doesn't believe in this kind
Hmm.
of stuff. And it's like, no, really. And then it just called. It's like so loud 3 times and then took off again. And it was just like kind of just to let him know, like, you're wrong. It was so good.
I love that so much. I love
Yeah.
when the animal signs are so loud like that. That's the
So
best.
loud. Like the perfect moment. I almost feel like she was watching him and
Yeah, for
you know.
sure. And letting you
Yeah.
know, like, I'm on it. Like, you broke that cycle, so you don't have to see my fate,
Yes.
because it's like she felt like she was too far in to like change
She
it.
did.
So all
Yeah.
she could do was influence you to like make a course change.
Yeah, I feel like I'm honoring her
Yeah,
by leaving, by starting my life, like just being, because it's scary. Nobody wants to leave. Nobody wants to have to
right.
um, be on their own. And then even the like the logistical things and the financial piece of it, it's not easy. It's
No.
so hard. And that's why I want women to read this book and feel as if they can do it and they
Mhm.
can get through it because it is, I mean, there were moments where I didn't know if I would, and I just felt so depressed over all of it. Like, why didn't I see all of this? And like, how could this happen? But then I would get those nudges and those signs that would reassure me, thank goodness. So I
Mhm.
also want people after reading the book to be okay maybe leaning into their spiritual side or having some interest in it.
Yeah,
And
welcoming the help from the other side when to gain
um,
the strength to make that change, even though it's
yeah,
ugly and difficult and expensive.
yes,
It's
very.
for your and your son's best health. And you even said that whenever, like, I don't remember which scenario it was, but ultimately, whenever you weren't around your ex-husband's toxic energy, how your child thrived. It really, because when they're on the spectrum, they're hypersensitive to things. They're not making it up. It's just that you don't feel it as strong.
I know,
So yeah, to see the
and I
change in
never,
him.
yeah, and to have other people comment on it, just being like, oh my gosh, just he
Yeah.
became like a different kid.
Hmm.
It was really unbelievable. And I thought, we can think as parents that we're hiding things. I mean, because I felt like anytime we would argue or fight, it was never in front of him,
Hmm.
like none of it, but it's that energy. It is the energy.
Energy doesn't lie.
No.
You know. Um, what about your friends in the brownstone? Do you want to talk about any of those stories?
Sure. I mean, okay, which part with them?
Well,
Like,
I was just
oh,
thinking
oh, oh, the journey.
journey, the mushroom
The
journey,
journey, yes, because I was like thinking of, oh yeah, I had like premonitions of what their brownstone was going to be like, and I just
because
that
they were good
I was
friends for
going,
you. You went to them like right away in the very beginning when things were like the realization and the despair, but then you also went to them and were hanging out with them in a healing place.
healing place.
Any part of that you want to talk about?
Yeah, well, I mean, he came to my friend's husband, James, in the book, came to me because he had had a ayahuasca ceremony and was like, they said you're already tapped in, like you're already tapped in, but you need to. And so I couldn't do ayahuasca because I was on Zoloft because it's
SSRI or whatever that.
SSRI, and then like it can like increase ayahuasca increases serotonin, so you can have like too much serotonin and like a serotonin overdose almost. So I mean, he's very big and getting um, psilocybin assisted therapy
Right.
in all the states, and like it's blossomed even more since that time. But yeah, he was having Evangeline, who is my therapist, was hosting a ceremony at their brown. They were like having it there because it isn't something that you can like publicly be like
Right.
this. It was like through who you know,
Right.
and it was like years of therapy in one night. And I was very afraid because of addiction and skeptical of quote unquote drugs, but psilocybin is from the earth. It's
Plant medicine.
plant medicine. And I was skeptical, but I was like, I knew I needed to do it. Like I knew it in my bones. And just the physical aspect of it, getting back into my body, because when you've experienced trauma like that, I was living so much in a dissociated state or just like very trying to be more so connected to the other side than actually physically here on Earth.
Right.
It didn't feel safe to be in my body
Yeah.
anymore. And so when my therapist recommended that my intention before the ceremony was to experience pleasure in my body, I was like, what? Like it just didn't seem like it added up to me. But then now, I mean, in retrospect, I was like, oh my God, yeah, of course. It was a moment where, I mean, I was just so kind of uncomfortable and I was kind of writhing around on this yoga mat and out of it just felt like I just had a pop in my belly, like my belly hung out. And
Yeah.
my belly does now. I'm used to always having my belly sucked in 24/7, just like, and it just popped,
Released. Yeah. Yeah.
released, and it was like I was back in my body and I could feel my body. And even when I went to go just like pee, I was like, oh my God, like it felt so good to just, it was, I
Yeah.
was really feeling my body again.
Yeah.
Um, and then just the visions at one point where I was walking up this staircase and I had these jewels on my fingers and like a cloak or I don't know, just feeling royal. Kind of feel like I
Mhm.
can't say that right now. And I'm walking up the steps and I'm like looking at my jewels and then I look down and I see my ex and his, the paramour, the girlfriend. Um, and at first, I was like, ugh, like I had beer goggles on, like, oh, that's who I was with. Like, you know what I mean? Like it just
Yeah.
didn't seem. But I also felt like I had, I don't even remember if this is mentioned a lot in the book, but I felt like it was zoomed out, like that experience was just a blip on my radar.
Yeah.
I felt like at
Just
the
a
time,
moment, just a moment in time. It was
just a
just a
moment in
little thought.
time.
Yep.
And then I also don't need to be attached to it as much as I was. I just couldn't let go of it because it
Yeah.
just, I mean, it was happening in my life. And, but then I was just like, oh, we have long stories. We have long lives that we can be different people. And it helped. And then the gratitude I had for this woman who was sleeping with him. I was so grateful for her. It was just
Oh,
for him.
really?
Thank you for taking his tension away and just
Right.
thank you for taking him away. I think it would have been harder if, you know what I mean? Like it
Yeah.
just was,
Yeah. You,
oh,
you saw like I guess like all of the perfect orchestration of it all. And
I could see all of that where I was like, oh, it all was happened in the way that it should. And I just had this distinct level of peace. And
Mhm.
look, there were after the ceremony, of course, you get back into your real life and there were moments where I would lose sight of that, but I pretty quickly could come back to having that gratitude again and being like,
Mhm.
thank goodness
Mhm.
that is not my problem anymore. Like that
Yeah.
is, thank God, you
Yeah.
know? If
Yeah.
I would have she really was like a blessing in a way.
That's cool. That's cool to have that shift in perspective,
Yeah.
like Molly. And somehow while you were talking, I remembered the other thing that I liked, and I resonate with about the father relationship. Like, oh, I'm so glad my father showed up for my birthday. Like, it's like
Mhm.
the bare minimum.
I
It is
know.
like excitable and rewarded because your peers were, like you reflected back on your eighth birthday at Pizza Hut, right? And
Yeah.
it's just like we as women and our relationships with the dad and men in our life and the little bit of attention we get that we should be happy about, like whatever. So whatever you want to talk about with that, because that was pretty powerful, and I definitely related to that.
I mean, that was the one that I really contemplated including my dad in
Mm-hmm.
this a lot.
Because you're not
There's
trying to like make him a bad guy or anything. It's
no,
just their culture.
it's our culture totally. And
Yeah.
he did what he thought what he
Yeah.
should be doing and was being a good father.
Yeah.
But yeah, just he had been playing golf and he got a hole in one and he left even though he didn't finish it out like he could have gotten his personal best, but he had made it to my birthday, my eighth birthday.
Right.
And him announcing that, I was just like, oh my gosh, my dad got a hole in one and he left for me. Like in retrospect, you're just like, oh God, wow. Because I started to try to look at why I accepted so little from my relationships, from men,
Hmm.
trying to understand why bare minimum was like going above and beyond.
Right. Well, because you said like the two girlfriends you had, like one dad wasn't in the picture at
One
all.
dad
The
was,
dad was bad or something like that. I forget.
yeah, yeah, their dad, yeah, one wasn't in the picture, the other one. And so it made me feel special that my dad even came. Like that was
Hmm.
like very
Yeah.
impressive
Yeah.
and made me feel special. So when you think about after, my ex and I weren't together, and then I've dabbled in dating, but now I'm very into the TikTok decentering from men and like now they're saying like being single and not even trying. Like I'm not trying to date at all right now, as they were like, it's elite. It's an elite type of mindset. I'm like cracking up over it, but I was like, I like that actually, because I don't have any desire, because I'm like, that's a new way of living
Right.
to no longer think I'm missing out on something if I don't find love, or like if I didn't think this way or didn't have these experiences, I probably would be like, my life isn't complete. I'm like, it's complete. It's
Right.
fine.
Right.
It's nothing else, but it took a long way to kind of get there.
But you and you did have like that short relationship with that guy that you kind of put it on the back burner, right?
Well, there's two mentioned, the farmer
Oh,
and younger
Mateo
guy.
or whatever you call him, right?
What? What?
Mateo or something. Was he like the what?
Mateo's was yes,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
The farmer brought you back to just enjoying men, right? So
Well, and having somebody
who was
like
like
an emotional
sensitive.
man,
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't, I had never had an experience like that. A man who writes poetry and is like okay with getting emotional about it. And we would pull like our Oracle tarot cards together and like, like it just was not, he was
Unreal.
so of the earth and just so different. And it was so refreshing. I feel like I've been very lucky because I've met really, really good men. I'm not saying that decentering from men is like currently is, it's just I still love men and they're great and wonderful, but I mean certain ones, and
Right.
having to be having my bar a lot higher.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. 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 Mateo, actually, yeah, he's purchased the book.
Right.
He has not read the book. He doesn't know.
Oh my
He's
God.
okay
That
with
must
being
be like
I
oh
know. Well, I sent him just a little bit of the conversation that we had. And because it was a beautiful, like when we did that psychology, like a three question, that part of
oh
the
yeah. Right,
yeah,
right.
where you ask, it
Like a
can tell
body
you
of
a lot about
water kind of
something.
thing.
Yes. Yeah. And I sent him that, but I didn't send him the rest. And so we'll see how
Well, at
he'll,
least you
but
used
it
it.
was the truth.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's actually sent, he was he's very encouraging, but uh still was saying like, oh, well, I'm just gonna be bummed out if there's other men mentioned in the book and something, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, I don't have time for you. Like, I don't have time for this. I don't have
Yeah.
time. What are you
Yeah.
talking about? Like,
Yeah.
you don't have claim over, like, what? There's
Yeah.
not, what? It just was very, it's like, whatever.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, should be interesting.
But it's like, yeah, so it's like um to like try to like say like it's the journey of you, like you were saying, like how you're talking about this book, like the journey of you like stepping more fully into your power and like, you know, more fully embodying your intuition and going through narcissistic drug addict slash alcoholism, like, you know, like this journey of taking your power back and trusting in yourself, like I don't
Really
know.
hard. And how my like internal dialogue where you'll like move three steps forward and then two back like at times, and you'll just but you will keep moving forward,
Hmm.
and things will get better, and trusting that. I mean,
And
yeah, it's incredibly.
journaling in that time was therapeutic, probably just because it was therapeutic, but then in wanting to wrap your mind around all of it, like this was real, this did happen, like you're glad
Yeah.
you that was a helpful whatever
Yeah. And
therapy.
it's and why and also, I mean, I feel like some days I was like, why do I need to like publish this though? Like, why does this need to be in book form? Like but I'm like, it's a crazy story. And my friend was like, and it's also a nightmare. It's something that we're always afraid might happen. Like he was a
Right.
great, wonderful guy for a very long time
Hmm.
and fell completely off the rails and was treated me very badly, as you will see, like just
Mhm.
shutting off the electricity, doing things that were just so controlling and manipulative and like punishing me for leaving, even though I'm like, but you're the one who did all these things to me. Like, what? Like, it was just
Yeah. And
craziness.
especially like that disconnect between father and child. You're like, how? Like
Yeah.
that must be really heartbreaking also, just
Oh, that's been,
as a mom to a kid.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
painful,
Yeah.
incredibly, incredibly painful.
Yeah.
And still having to
You're
not,
you're in each other's lives to what extent, but it's like you're permanently connected, you know.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting because I do have a lot of my son will do certain expressions that remind me of him,
Mhm.
but and it's the person before all of it, and I feel like I can still have love for that
Yeah, it
person before.
doesn't like
Like
trigger.
I separate it
Yeah.
a bit.
Right. Yeah, the before and after kind of a thing.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
the other story that I thought was crazy, and then I guess we should, I don't know if we should probably wrap it up, but like,
I didn't realize the
um,
time. Okay,
well,
yeah.
I don't have a
Yeah, yeah.
commitment, but I just for the sake of,
Yeah.
how long we've been recording. But the who was it? The lady who was like the therapist or like the intermediary was like in a relationship with him or something. Like, what the fuck was that about? Who was a lawyer? Like, I don't know who she was, but she was contacting you and like, and you
The
were,
CPS person, Child
yeah,
Protective
I
Service.
couldn't remember who it was, but I knew it was somebody who was like an intermediary. But she was like totally being gaslit by him and
Oh,
believed him
horrific.
because he was
Just
charismatic, I guess.
power of men that are
Yeah.
tall and charismatic, and to see a man who was crying over his kids. I feel like that because he could turn on the waterworks.
Hmm.
Really, I mean, he did for me, and it made me, do whatever to make
Yeah.
him feel better.
Yeah.
It worked its wonders on me and her. I mean, so yeah, that was one of the things. I was so overwhelmed with everything that at any other time, I would have reported her to the board or done whatever. But basically, in the process of trying to figure out, so let me skip back. So Child Protective Services came over because of the incident that got my car blocked in, and that because even though my son didn't witness anything, he was asleep in the bed, it still is something that where a child was there,
Hmm.
So um she came over and I mean, she basically made it out like this was nothing. He was crying over me. I should be grateful that like I should go back with him and then I found when in the process of trying to figure out who the mistress was, my sister was color coded the call log for me to try to see like the numbers that would repeat and if it was the same time as whenever with the receipt, like total
Detective
investigation.
work. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And then that's where the number I had figured out was the CPS worker. They were texting each other late at night.
It's just like, what the F? What's going on here? Like, what
I seriously, and
I must have been like, what reality am I in? Like, what the hell is going?
that's the thing. It's like you can't make this shit up. Like it's just like, what?
Yeah, that's such a
And
boundary. Like, holy
I
moly.
know. And what women though too, where it's like a man can give you the smallest amount of it for her,
Hmm.
smallest amount of attention, and like you will cross boundaries that maybe she normally wouldn't have. I don't know.
Yeah, because you could tell just even by the language she was using that he was how he was feeding and manipulating the situation through her.
Yeah. Yeah. And she like wasn't getting it. I'm
Yeah,
like, he cheated. I had to get STD testing
yeah.
because there was a plan B. And she's like, well, he said they wore a condom. And I'm like, oh my God. Like, and then she's like, you would have noticed already down there. I'm like, what?
Yeah,
It just was the most, I'm like, I mean, I guess I was even like, how did that come up? Like, it was just all very,
yeah. Like they went way personal.
and then my mom's like a very conservative person and a very like does not talk about sex and things like she's
Hmm.
have this conversation going on in front of her was like a whole other level of embarrassment and shame for me.
Hmm.
Just the whole thing was awful.
Oh my gosh, I
It
know.
was so bad. Like
What?
sometimes when I read back of the book, I'm like, holy shit, that's somebody. Phew. Like it feels like a different person in a different time.
Hmm.
I mean, it's just so. unbelievable.
but why you're compelled to share it and air it all is like because you're a light worker and you're trying to bring healing to the world. That's really why. It's like it's an
Yeah.
important message to share and empower for others because so many people don't speak up but
Mm.
will agree and understand and know. So it's like you're like, whatever, spirit's using me to be this, bullhorn to this topic. So
Yeah, I don't, the not just this, I don't think this would have happened. Like, I think that this was almost supposed to happen, is what I've come to peace with, that this was supposed to happen because this book can be used to help other people
yeah,
heal and get through it and see themselves, even if you're in a relationship where like you don't know if it's abusive or you don't know if there's, but you wonder, like just that. I feel like you can, or if you're in a relationship with somebody who maybe drinks a little too much and like you don't know if it's crossing a line, and then just as a preventative to be like, this is how bad it can get. So red flags, pay attention to them. But,
subtitle.
but
Yeah.
yeah. Hmm. Yeah. But I
Well,
do feel liberated in the process too, that you can get past it and on the other side. But I felt like it was never going to
yeah,
end.
once all of the ties were cut, like that bound you to him with like the health insurance or whatever, that's when you really felt like you could finally breathe
Yeah.
and not be under his control or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he was negotiating me laying off needing child support
Yeah.
in order for him to keep me on the insurance. And I was like, I cannot believe you're using this. And I'm sure other women have had this experience too.
Yeah.
And maybe they don't talk about it.
Well, yeah, like you had like moments of weakness where you're like, well, maybe
Oh,
I'll
yeah.
let him in. And then it was like a barrage of shit. And you're like, fuck, no.
No, I had to keep learning a lesson. I feel like over and over and over again.
Because
Like
it's like you do remember who he was and you miss that, but it makes sense. It's fair. But yeah, it had
yeah,
to be repeated.
had to be repeated. And the thing is that like on a soul level, like
Hmm.
on a whole other
Higher
level,
perspective. Yeah.
higher perspective, um, maybe he was meant to play this role to help me evolve though too. Who knows? Like I just I'm feeling less and less. I mean, I definitely have my days where the anger comes back again, and just being left with all these responsibilities. I mean, I'm still in it, and I'm in the process of trying to get SSI for my son for his disability. And then, with everything that's going on in the world and the breakdown of the Department of
My
Education, and
God.
then, I mean, is this going to affect
Yeah.
me and another in multiple other ways? I mean, it's scary, and I wish that I wouldn't have to like lean so heavily on like needing that income to hopefully come through.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's just,
It's a
but I
lot.
would rather be on my own than
Hmm.
feeling being in that kind of environment.
Yeah. For
That
sure.
would like be putting my son back years if we were still there.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
know. You're better off where you are, but
Mhm.
it's quite the story. And it didn't feel like, I don't know, just in the telling of it, it was easy to digest and easy to follow. And I don't know, it was well done. You did a great job.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. No, that means so much. I am feeling more and more relief. I thought I would start being more like, oh gosh, the more people would read it. And now I'm feeling better about hearing
Yeah.
from you. And then because you're one of the first people that have read it. And
I'm
I was
honored.
like,
And I would say like anyone would be, like I can't I don't have a parallel story, but like I still was captured by it as a story. I mean, I know it's your life, but like, you know what I mean? Like
yeah.
anybody could read it and gain from it because
Mhm.
it's lots of cool, like the synchronicities and all of the messaging. I don't know. It's just it was well done. And I think that anybody could really enjoy it, benefit from reading it. So
Yeah.
I
I
was
love
I
it.
was like,
Yeah.
because I was like, okay, like I'll read it. And whenever I've had a few people who I know who've written books, and I've been like, almost like, well, I hope I like it, because you feel like you don't want to be
All
like,
right.
that was great. But
Yeah.
I really mean it. Like I
Thank you.
to read it. I very much enjoyed it, and it's brave of you to bare your soul.
Yeah.
Because
Thank you.
yeah,
Yeah, because I mean, I know I will get books like friends will, you know what I mean, will write things and it is kind of a tricky thing because you're like, well, will I actually like it, And I knew it because it is there are themes in it that even though you don't have to go through a divorce or anything like that, but I think all women kind of know
Yeah.
this feeling or had parts of these type of experiences. Just being in this world, how could you not?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like part of this feminine experience. So,
Yeah.
well, thank you. And do you have like,
Thank you.
sure. It was like, what's your website if people wanted to like find you or find your book or to pre-order it or whatever?
Pre-orders are on Amazon all over worldwide, Barnes& and Noble, Bookshop, Books A Million,
Mhm.
or you can go to Simon& and Schuster where it's distributed by them, or Library Tales Publishing. You can also go to Men with Mayor on my YouTube channel and see me there, or Men with Mayor on TikTok or Instagram.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, I have my therapy website, but I don't have my book like
Okay.
posted. That's something on the to-do list. I'm
Are you
trying.
gonna do an audio? Are you gonna like read it and have it be recorded as an audio?
I would like that to be done. Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. I believe that that's in the works. And then there are going to be book signings too right
Okay.
now, working on in New York, Philadelphia, Boston, wait, not Boston, New York, Philadelphia, Chicago, and Nashville and
Are you
Columbus.
doing that like after the book's published, like in like the summer or like in the fall?
I think so. Yeah. We're not finalized. We're just figuring out the cities now to based on like
Yeah,
who's
demographics.
buying it the most and stuff
Right.
like that.
Right. That's exciting. So
So exciting. It's pretty amazing. So,
yeah. Well,
yes. Yes.
congratulations. And I'm
Thank you so much. And thank you for having me. This was
for
awesome.
sure. Yeah, for sure. We'll
Oh
see
my
you.
God.
Thanks again.
Thank you.